This is vlog 006, which means that it's the 7th vlog. 7, whatever. Yeah, because I have a zero-based index. So this is vlog 006, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. You'll see that I'm not on my main camera, I'm using my webcam, and the quality is a little bit worse. I just wanted to go over what I've been up to and what I've been doing for the past couple of months. It's March, well into the year, and I just wanted to catch up on goals and things like that. I want to start with tech because I've been the most excited about it. I started a new organization called StairDucks, which is kind of a play. It was supposed to be asterisk ducks. It was like a wildcard ducks, if that makes sense. It was supposed to be just Redux-based tools, and then I thought it's a really funny name, and now it doesn't have just Redux-based tools. So the first project I made here was StairDucks, which is a tool for Redux that allows you to add runtime reducers. Yeah, you can just register a reducer whatever you're doing. So StairDucks wraps your reducer, your main reducer. Where do I have to set? Yeah, self-bootstrapping. I need to expand the documentation. But basically what you're able to do is pass in your reducer to StairDucks, and then StairDucks is able to register new reducers in runtime and subscribe and unsubscribe them. That makes it very code splitter friendly. So like if you have a route called admin and you have admin reducers, you can actually pull those in from a separate bundle, require them, and then register them with StairDucks. And then on user logout, you can easily just get rid of them if you want to. So that means that you're able to do code splitting, you're able to self-bootstrap, you're able to register reducers wherever you want to, and reducers are no longer like a fixed entity. And I think that's a pretty cool project. It's a play on the word paradox, and also it's a pair of ducks, and I thought that was pretty funny. I hope you like my logos. It's a little bit fuzzy, but that's okay. So that's my first project that I worked on this year, and it's pretty much finished. I think it's on version 1.2. Yeah, 1.2. It's featureful, it wraps the reducer, and it's pretty cool. The second project I've been working on is UltraDucks. So UltraDucks is a proof of concept Redux-like library compatible with all of Redux's ecosystems, and that's the tagline. I wrote a blog post basically going over how to build your own Redux-like library, and it follows all of the conventions of Redux. It's fully compatible with Redux. You can pass in enhancers, you can pass in middleware, any kind of tools that work with Redux will work with UltraDucks, which is really cool, and I'm really happy about that. It doesn't provide any of the safeties that Redux provides, and it's not as, I guess, robust. So you can, try to subscribe a listener that's not a function. Oops. As you can see, I'm not checking for a type of for subscriber, things like that. And along with UltraDucks, and here, this is, I have a few code pens that demonstrate that it works. It's kind of like my tests, but I wanted to have the users or the readers, immediate access to messing around with UltraDucks. Now, while I was building UltraDucks, I decided to build an enhancer that uses the Paradox API. Now, being an enhancer, I can add the add a reducer or register reducer function directly on the store. So instead of having to require a Paradox, you can just call on the function on the store itself. And that's really cool. I'm really happy about it, and you can see that it works here. So runtime only. We'll go ahead and run hello. We'll go ahead and remove the reducer, and runtime only doesn't work anymore. So it's really cool. So you can add reducers, remove reducers, and at runtime, and it works, and it's attached to the store. And I'm hoping to build it out as a whole featureful project that I can then use with Redux itself rather than my own alternative version. I also built out a toggleable logger enhancer, and there's like a quick gist over here. I haven't updated all of my repos. I've been working on stuff on my own machine, so I actually don't have all of the features and all of the updates. But one of the cool things that I did with UltraDucks is I'm starting on the documentation there so that people don't have to look at my blog post. But yeah, it's completely compatible with Redux. You can use the dev tools, you can use apply middleware, you can use pretty much anything that you want of that nature. My third project is StairDucks, the name of the repo, or sorry, the same name as the organization. It's a library boilerplate, so it has like a few headings in the README. It has a contributing that is very bare, but it works there. It has a license that I use on all of my projects. It has the test and source and Webpack and Babel and package JSON, everything set up. Even Circle is set up, Circle YML, so I can enable builds right away. It's really, really exciting because I've been starting projects left and right, as you can see. So I built 2 of the projects, and I have a third one called Scorus. Scorus is by far my favorite project because it has the most application in my day-to-day work. It says 26 days ago, last updated. I did a ton of work in the meantime that I haven't pushed yet. So I'm going to have to do that eventually. I even have a logo. You know what? I'm going to do something that I haven't done before in the vlog. I'm going to go ahead and push the changes. And wow, I just don't like my neighbor sometimes. So let's see good status. And we're going to go ahead and push it. Alright, it's been pushed. And I have a logo that I did not include. Okay, do I have a logo here somewhere? I don't have the logo. Where's the logo? I swear I had the logo here. Wow, I don't have the logo. It's a crappy logo anyway. But now I actually have some of the documentation. So Scorus is a word in my language, in my native language, Czech, that means cinnamon, and it's actually an assertion library that you can put on top of chai. So you have mocha, you have chai, and then you put a little bit of Scorus on top of chai, a little bit of cinnamon. Cinnamon JS is kind of like way too, I don't know, there are so many cinnamon named projects that I didn't want to encroach on that, so I decided to use one of my native words. So what's cool about Scorus is that you provided a template and a body, or a template and a template object and another object, and it tells you if they're alike. That means that does that project have at least all of the keys in the template? It's kind of like an interface, right? Like we're basically asserting that that object that you get, the object that you're comparing against, has at least these keys defined. There's an assert exact, which makes sure that basically they both have the same number of keys and the same exact keys and structure. So like I said, it's a structure assertion library, so that's what it does. There's a equal, which is a regular equal. There's a deep equal. I think that all makes sense. There's a templating function, so you can create a template, and instead of having to always rebuild the template and do this, you can just create one templating function and then just check, is it like a tweet? The documentation is very sparse, I guess, is that the way to put it? But there are some really cool features that I'm working on there that I'm excited about, and one of them is actually assert like types. Let me go ahead and zoom in. Yeah, that looks kind of horrible. So what that does is actually it figures out what the type of a variable or what type of a value a key holds, and it checks it against the template. So what you can do, actually this is wrong, but what you can basically do is when you're declaring a template, you can say ID, it's supposed to be a number, name, it's supposed to be a string, body is supposed to be an object, and it checks, is it an object? What kind of a type is this? And so that's pretty cool. I'm really excited about that one. I'm hoping to add, a whole kind of DSL that lets you say that, is it an ID, or sorry, is it a number that's an integer? Is it a string that is at least 3 characters long? Is it an object body that, I don't know. It's recursive as well. So that means that if you actually pass in an object here with its own keys, it makes sure that the body still matches that template. And now I use it for testing purposes, like testing the API, kind of like an end-to-end test, or a integration test, as you would call it. I use it with Supertest on my at work and in previous jobs. So I'm kind of excited about having this really powered up library to do this. in the past, I created a different library called compare JSON structure, and obviously this is actually nothing to do with JSON. It has to do with JSON structure validator. We're not actually comparing JSON, we're comparing JavaScript objects, and it does just a simple comparison. And it tells you true, or it'll tell you false, or sorry, it will tell you that a value is true, so you have to actually do equals true, or it's going to return a string that tells you where the two objects don't match. In my new project, it'll actually throw an error telling you where they don't match. Now, I created 2 more projects. One of them is a lightweight Angular boilerplate, and the other one is a lightweight React boilerplate, but I haven't done much with it yet. This is basically just a StairDucks, so I have a boilerplate called Boiled Egg because I liked it. It sounds better than boilerplate, and it sounds kind of funny, so... because boilerplates suck, they tried to do everything, they're over-protected, and boiled eggs are good. I like boiled eggs, so that's pretty much what I've been up to with programming. I updated maybe a couple of my existing libraries, but I've been mostly focused on these StairDucks robust libraries, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. Now, the other thing I did was actually I picked up blogging again, to some extent. So I did the UltraDucks blog post that tells you how to build your own Redux-like library from scratch. I also did like an introduction to StairDucks. We can check that out real quick. It's just a bunch of samples, what's so great about it. It's like the documentation, but a little bit more expanded, and it got featured on dev.to. The last thing that I posted about was about Wrecker. Wrecker is a fictional AI recommendation engine that rules your life. It's supposed to be, I wrote a piece of fiction called Wrecker that tells the stories of 2 different people. One of them is very complacent, the other one is a little bit, let's say, aggressive. And they go through life, they use this new app called Wrecker that hooks into everything that you, like all of your social media and everything, and it filters everything out based on your likes, based on your behavior, based on your engagement, and based on the engagement of people around you, so that you get a tailored news feed, tailored Twitter feed, tailored Facebook feed, tailored podcasts, and it also makes recommendations of, hey, that you should add this next or whatever. So it's kind of like what you already see on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, whatever other social media, but it takes everything in, looks through those text messages, your emails, it follows you around, it does all these like very intrusive things just to give you a better idea, or better, just to be more accurate, I would say. So I compared it to Facebook posts, whatever. So this is based on a piece of fiction, and it kind of goes through the details of what it looks like. I'm gonna run through that real quick for you guys, just because I'm really excited about it. So we have some fictional features. The fictional features are being able to gather data from everywhere. It has the ability to create recommendation suggestions. It has the ability to plug into any outside services to learn about you, and uses mass central data collection and on-the-fly learning of all of its users. I call it a AI as a service. AI as a service, or AS. Yeah. So you hook into it, AS processes you, and goes back. Love my graphics. So you get better recommendations, because, like let's say on Facebook, I may comment only on a few friends' feeds, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm interested in specific topics that they're discussing. It's more that I'm interested in them. So taking that into account, taking into account my Google searches, taking into account my Twitter likes and tweets and retweets, taking into account all these different data sources to create a machine learned me, like a recommendation engine just for me, tailored to me. And so that would definitely result in better recommendations. It would have a better idea of who I am, what my interests are, what I'm looking for, where I want to go with that. My other idea is that created and they will come will actually come true. So a lot of the times you hear, build it and the masses will come, write it and the masses will come, and you hear about how, well, that's not true, marketing is a huge deal. So what if we sidestepped marketing? So one thing that Google does, interestingly enough, is that if there's a new resource that it thinks might be worthwhile to show you for a Google search, it'll kind of like do an A/B type testing and throw it into the top three top 4 results and see if you how you do. You know, do you bounce around? Do people click on your link and go back immediately and try to find a different link, or do people click on that link, spend a long time on that page, and like an hour later come back to search for something else? So Google uses all these different metrics to figure out what is the top thing that people interact with and they want to use. Now, of course, there are some other things like trust based on linking, blah, blah. But what if you had an AI, right, that figure out which users are high power users, users that others follow and emulate? And I thought to myself, okay, that'd be really cool. Like if we had these high power users, you can use them for A/B testing new content that may not have any trust behind it. You know, I imagine that this AI would be able to analyze the text and figure out, is it actually worthwhile, is it not, based on like grammar, based on how similar it is to other texts in the field or that are similar to that, and then A/B test it against the high power users and see what happens. Because if that catches on with one high power user, I could see that spreading out to everybody else. Or if it catches on among several high power users, you could see that's catching on and spreading out. And this is kind of like, I talked about this here, that the ultimate dream: create something good and get recognized without having to have a huge following or without striking gold on HN or Reddit. I mean, and that, you know, one of the reasons why my blog is so popular is because I struck gold, like with HN and Reddit. I struck gold very quickly, and then I struck gold with Google because I was very searchable, very linkable, and in the end, I strike gold very often. Now, not entirely sure why that is, but even if it's a bummer on Reddit or HN Hacker News, my articles still do well elsewhere. And connecting with like minds is the last thing, and dating. So having all that wealth of information, you can not only just suggest new content, you can suggest new users to connect with. And I want to say that there should be suggested friends, right? So when you browse through Facebook, you have suggested friends, which usually means that it's somebody that the app figured out you were around. Like, let's say if you went to your doctor or something like that and uses your GPS, it figures out that you're there, maybe it imports your contacts. They're not really suggested friends. I almost want to say they're people that you may know because you have had interactions with them outside of Facebook. What I would love to see is using all this technology to connect people that actually like each other. Imagine Tinder, that instead of swiping left and right, and that's why I said, you know, connecting with like minds and dating. Imagine a Tinder where instead of swiping left and right, you literally have people that you are like 90% compatible with. Now, I'm no stranger to dating apps, so like OkCupid does something like that. It asks you a million freaking questions and tries to match you up against somebody, but it doesn't work that well. Having an AI that learns from what you do and what they do, and comparing that together, finding common interests, even suggesting common interests, like, hey, you guys should talk because you both like vegetarian food and spend half your time taking fucking pictures of it. That's great, but none of the dating apps will have that kind of insight in what you do, and having this engine would make it really great. Now, one thing I talked about with the AI as a service is that gathering all this data and this service means that if there's a new service that wants to hook in, it can provide new data, feed it its own content, and get recommendations for you based on your activities outside of that app. So imagine there's a new social media app called Phone Connect, because why not? So Phonect, yeah, let's call it Phonect. So Phonect is a new app. People like it, but they're like, hey, I don't know who to add. I don't know who I would really like to connect with through my phone. I don't know what kind of contact I want to look at. So this app, hooks into it. You give it permission. You say, hey, Phonect, it's fine if you access my record. I want to know what would be best for me. So that app can feed more information into the engine, so it can know more about you, and then it could feed its own data into the engine, so that the engine can spit back out recommendations for you based on everything else. So you might have a friend that's on Facebook and Twitter, but you don't have them in your contact list, which means that you can't look them up on this new app. With this, you'd be able to look them up, but also look up maybe their friends that you might have something in common with. So it's just kind of like that. Just kind of thinking about that. I don't know. There's a lot of bad, right? So you have the data. You feed that data into ads, and you feed it back to users, and you have extremely highly targeted ads that are borderline manipulative. Not borderline, they are manipulative. So there's anonymized data collection. It's not anonymized because you basically have all the information on the person in order for this to work. And then, so I'm discussing like what exists right now, and with this data collection, it would be even worse. Like on the lighter end, you could be subjected to ad targeting, which is pretty bad already. And the darker end, you could be subjected to blackmail, stolen identity, and much, much worse. Because data and information is power right now, right? Information selling for ad targeting, so I'm kind of went more into that here. It's kind of creepy because there are some people that talk about how, like, in Gmail they got an email, they're emailing with somebody privately about an issue they haven't mentioned to anybody else, and they go on another site and they get ads that are targeted based off that conversation. That's scary. And I talk about this, like, what happens when these ads are targeting your opinion? What if you had a family member with cancer in your family? Wow. And Susan G. Komen ads start popping up constantly. What if your local politician placed an ad on that criteria because they're trying to capitalize on a campaign promise related to cancer or hospital funding, right? So right now we already have demographics, but the demographics are more like, you know, white, in their 20s, male, high professional career, right? What if you could be even more granular with that, right? Like, what if you could say that and then say, you know, spends 2 hours every day gaming, playing this game with this specific character. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's like you can almost target based off of that, right? Like, I play a ton of Overwatch. I enjoy Overwatch. What if some politician ran an ad that was basically like, oh, hey, if you'd like DVA, you should go vote for me. And you're like, oh, this guy likes Overwatch. And suddenly you like him better. It's a stupid example, but this example with cancer I think is much better. Basically, using your personal, private information to make you, you know, to influence your opinion. So the ugly. You feed it data. You know, each person is like a black box. They feed it data to an AI. You get the data, customized data, third party, and coming back. We're getting into echo chamber territory, right? So echo chamber is the idea that you have an opinion, you're somewhere, you say something, and the only thing you see is like confirmation bias, right? So I'm in the tech world. If I tweeted something about how technology is going to save the world, I have 900 followers that would agree with me, and I follow 1,000 other people that would agree with me as well. And so I only get agreement. I don't get the diversity. I don't get the diversity of opinions. I'm not going to get somebody who's going to tell me, no, technology is bad. You should go work on a farm and not use any technology whatsoever, because how would somebody like that be on Twitter? And most likely I would not be connected with them anyway. So having all these different suggestions is that you get into an echo chamber, and that can really really emphasize the confirmation bias. So in my Wrecker story, the actual fiction story, I talked about how one of the people was like, you know, I think this country's going to hell and there's going to be a civil war. And all they got was confirmation on that, because only their friends that are interested in that would comment on it. So they ended up with like, oh yeah, this is happening, let me show you an article. And then they would only get articles that are related to that. Never any articles that would talk about the opposite. Never any of their friends that disagree with them. So the echo chamber effect is a problem. And I talked about it here. The effect was undeniable for me during the election, because my Trump friends, my Trump supporter friends, Facebook friends, there was a little fun meme that said check Hillary's page and how many friends liked it, and now check Trump's and post the results. My Trump supporter Facebook friends always had numbers favoring Trump, 2 for Hillary and 45 for Trump. My Clinton supporter friends had numbers like, 34-1, and they both believed that this is what America was like. My friends who were Trump supporters were basically like, nobody's gonna vote for Hillary. My Hillary friends were like, nobody's gonna vote for Trump because of these numbers, and they don't make sense. You're gonna be friends with the people that agree with you. That's pretty much where you're gonna be at with that. My own numbers were like 2 and 3, so I don't really have many politically inclined friends. That doesn't mean that people aren't interested in politics. That just means that I'm surrounded by people who aren't, at least publicly. Now, I talked about potential for massive individualized manipulation. So think about that echo chamber effect, except the confirmation bias is toward a targeted idea, right? So instead of saying that technology is good, right? You would say all of our money needs to go to technology, right? And you might be like, I don't know if I feel like that's right, but then you have 900 friends that were suggested to you, articles, everything's catered toward that. So it's kind of like advertising, but it's built into your life, right? And so you end up looking at this direct manipulation that tells you this is how things are, and not ever showing you the diverse opinion, not because it's a confirmation bias, but to influence you to have a certain idea. So you may not be of the opinion, but because you're surrounded by that opinion, you might basically be moved toward that opinion, if that makes sense, without ever being shown the other side. So that was kind of like the worst thing that could happen there, right? Is a bubble, an echo chamber that's custom built for you so that it echoes ideas that either the government or some other entity or like a hacker wants you to believe. So I went off on a huge tangent here, and I didn't mean to. I totally meant to just spend 5 minutes on this. I wasn't even going to talk about this blog post, really. I feel weird about it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say one more thing before I end my vlog. One of the things that's coming up is the first quarter of the year. There was a cool idea that I saw on a TED Talk that I don't remember the name of, which talked about quarterly reviews, doing a quarterly reviews of looking back, but also writing a quarterly review for the next quarter. What? How does that make sense? Well, the idea is that, let's say in March, let's say 21st, because that's what, the first day of spring. Or is it 23rd? No, it's the 21st. You do like a quarterly review. You'd say, hey, this is what I did January through March. These are like all the things that I've been up to. This is my quarterly review. Now, you write that quarterly review for the next quarter as well. So for June 21st, the first day of summer, right? You'd write what, if you were in the future, what would you like to look back on and be like, this is in my quarterly review? So it's not looking ahead. You're not looking ahead and saying, these 3 things are my goals. What you're doing is visualizing from the future what your goal, what you have accomplished, what you will have accomplished. So for example, one of the things I want to do is get started on writing a technical book. So my first quarter review will be something like, hey, I wrote a proposal for a technical book. My second quarter preview or pre-review or future review might say, I wrote the first 6 chapters. And that's kind of like, this is what I did, except I'm gonna do it. So I know it's kind of weird, but I really like this idea of looking at the future life as far as like, what is it that I would have liked to say and be there and say, hey, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad that that's on my list of things that I did. It's really easy to set goals and be like, I'm going to learn and do a million fucking things in the future. I think it's much easier to sit down and be like, this is what I did last quarter. What is it that conceivably I will have done by the next quarter, and looking at it as if it's already done and working toward that. I really like that idea, so hopefully next video I can share with you guys the last quarter review and the next quarter preview and see how that goes. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.